So there are many aspects to photography that make or break a beautiful photograph, and a lot of nice appealing photographs that you see out there actually follow very basic photography rules that you can replicate whether or not you're using an expensive camera or a cheap smartphone camera. And many people say that the best camera that you have is not that $10,000 camera that is sitting at home, but it's the camera that is always with you, your phone. So today I'm going to share with you some of the basic tips and tricks, and as well as some of these photography rules to help you up your game next time you take photographs with your smartphone. So stay tuned. Hello, my name is Sean and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I do a lot of tech reviews as well as unboxing, and sometimes we also do tech talks like that to help you understand a little bit more about the technology world. And if that is something that interests you, do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a thumbs up on this video. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of these tips and tricks to help you take better photographs. So we've come outside today to film this particular segment, and it's quite a warm day here today in Malaysia, but nevertheless we're going to share with you a little bit about some of the things that is crucial in learning about photography, whether you're using a camera or you're using your smartphone. So today we have our subject here, and we're going to use this today to talk about how we're going to put stuff in frame, and what is depth of field and things like that. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first segment. So the first thing we want to talk about is depth of field, and depth of field is a very important subject in the world of photography because it is essentially creating a focus on your subject. And we're not talking about camera focus and how sharp your photos are, but a photo with a subject. So the first thing that draws people's attention to your photo is that when your photo has a very clear subject about what you're photographing and what is it about. One of the best ways to bring out a subject from your photo is using depth of field, meaning you have that blurry background that you see in most photographs, and they're very appealing, and they are what people call bokeh. So bokeh is essentially that creamy, out of focus background that you see on photos. So it is very easy to replicate or create that out of focus background using a large DSLR with a big sensor and a large aperture lens, but it's very hard to replicate that on smartphones. So a lot of smartphones today, they actually have features to create live focus mode, portrait modes, to help you create that blurry background that you see in many photographs. So one of the ways you can do it is using some of those capabilities on your smartphone to create that live focus or portrait mode, or another way is that you can learn the organic way of how lenses function, and you can get that out of focus background out of the camera itself without any filters or post-processing from your phone. So here are 3 tips on how to get the best out of focus background for your photograph. So I'm going to switch up the lens a little bit. We're going to take a look how to do this from the perspective of the phone itself. So we switched up the camera a little bit, so now you're looking at what I'm seeing through my camera phone. And the first thing that we're going to share with you to create that nice creamy bokeh is to get close up to your subject. So you can see by how I'm moving the camera, and you can already tell how the lens will actually perceive the photo. So the first tip here is that if you were to take your photo like that, which is what most people will do, they stand somewhere around the subject and they'll click snap, and that's your photo. But what happens here is that you get a lot of empty spaces around, and you don't get a very nice blurry background. So what we're going to do here is actually go up close to your subject, and you can see organically everything else gets blurred off pretty nicely. So here we can take a photo, and that photo will look very appealing as a final product. So you can see that the lens is a little bit blurred. So the first tip here is to get up close to your subject and bring your subject very close to the lens as far as your lens can focus. Right. The second thing of getting nice blurry background is that you have a nice distance between your foreground as well as your background. So the further away your background is, the better the blur will look. So what happens here is that you can see that if I have a background that is like that, you can see that the background starts to blur out quite a bit. And if I were to put in an even further background, let's say the condominium on top, and you can see that the composition and the blurry of the background actually changes quite a bit. So let's just take a photo from this angle, and you can see how the background is organically blurred without using any software alterations. And lastly, your camera phone nowadays would most likely come with a portrait mode, or in the Note 10 it's called live focus mode. I'm not too much of a fan of this, but with good lighting like today, you should be able to get quite a nice blurry background to it. So if you notice one thing, when you go into live focus mode, the camera automatically goes into the telephoto lens if you actually have that, and from there we can take that photo, and with that you can see how the camera actually perceives the background, and you can see it creates a very nice and pleasing bokeh background there. So with that said, that is the three main methods you can use to create that creamy blurry background for your photographs. So the second part of this experiment is to share with you how composition can help you change up the way your photographs look like and help you make a more professional looking photograph. So framing is one of the very most important things that you can consider in upping the game of your photography. But composition is a little bit more subjective, as many people perceive photos very differently. But at large, learning the basics will immediately help you improve your photo game by quite a big margin. And if you're new to framing and composition, start by enabling the grid lines on your camera. So what you're going to do is go into settings here and go to grid lines. And with that, you can see that on the screen itself, you can see that there are 9 individual boxes and all the crisscrossing lines there. So that is what helps you frame your subject. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the magical rule of thirds. And if you're new to photography, you may not have heard about this, but what it essentially means is that you should never frame your subject in the middle as a general guideline. Try not to photograph your image like this with VW camper van in the middle of the screen. But what can you do is that the rule of third is to push your subject to the side of the grid lines. That means you don't center it like this, but you put them slightly off to the side, and it will immediately create a very dramatic effect and makes your photograph look a lot better. And so this is basically a guideline on helping you frame your subjects better in photograph. But the idea is to always place your subjects in horizontal lines so that it sits outside of the center square. Simply doing this will create a more visually appealing photograph and can be applied to many situations, from product photography, portraits to landscapes. So let's just take a couple of sample shots here. This will be the photograph if the subject is in the center, and this is when the subject is out of frame, and you can see I'm positioning it to the bottom right crisscross there, and you can see how much more dramatic that photograph looks like. So same thing here, I'm positioning it on the upper left corner of the grid lines, taking that photo. And I can also combine this together with the blurry background effect that I've taught you earlier, so you can see now that creates a very nice appealing photograph. So let's go to live focus mode. So I'm closer now to the subject. I'm going to focus on that truck, positioning the truck on the bottom right of the frame and taking that photo. So let's just see how that turns out. Very nice composition as well as blurred background. So the second thing about photography is that a lot of times we film things at an angle that is very normal to a human perspective. Ultimately, human likes things that are new, and if they see certain objects or seen every day in a day-to-day basis, they're going to think that it is normal, so it's not going to stand out. So a good tip is to imagine that it is you seeing things from a different angle. So try to shoot things differently. For example, if you're shooting a child, don't take the photo from above. There's normal adult perspective and it's boring. Try getting it down to the child's level, and you immediately see an improvement in your photos. So most people, if they see this camper van, what they'll do is that they'll actually take a photo like that. They take a photo like that. So it's not so much appealing, but like how you seen the other photographs just now, if you go down low to the camper van itself, creating an all new perspective, that will help you create a more pleasing shot overall. So that's the second tip in terms of composition. And the last tip that I want to share with you is filling the frame. So many times we see people photograph a subject, and the subject is so small in the entire photograph, something like this, and filling the frame actually gives a very dramatic change to your photograph. It gives you more details, it helps you see more expression, and basically more of your subject in your frame. which is key to making a great looking photograph. So similarly, if here I don't feel the frame, this is what it typically looks like for this particular photo. So nothing special, nothing awesome, and you know, we're getting a lot of the background, but that's not essentially the focus or the subject of this photograph. So what we can do is actually just go in closer, and filling the entire frame with the camper van helps make the photo so much better, and it helps you remove distractions from your background. So if we take one from this angle, you can see how nicely the camper van is framing inside here. Looks like a real camper van in a real life setting here. So filling the frame helps you make better composition, better shots. Overall, you can see that the background is also blurring up here quite nicely. So those are some of the tips that you can use to create a more appealing photograph. So that's all for today's sharing and how to take better photographs with your smartphone. And with all of these techniques locked down and mastered, you can really take this skill anywhere and start taking better photos. My name is Sean, and I hope you've learned a thing or two on this video. And if you do, let me know by smashing that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. And with that said, I'll see you in the next video.